Hello.
This meeting is being
Hello.
recorded.
Hello,
How are
hello.
you?
Well, I'm pretty good.
Good.
I had a problem getting the email to three.
Zoom recording. I decided today I'd be a little fancy. um, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're at the time. So thank you guys for being here. So we're going to talk about the three funnels you need in your email system. So I wanted to first ask, does everyone understand what the term funnel means?
I think I do. It's where at the top of the funnel you're out to pretty much everybody, and then you focus it to your niche, and then you start giving free things, and then you start get conversations and communication and relationships, and then you start focusing on high-paying clients. And I don't know, is that anything
Yeah.
like it?
Yes. So you're talking that's kind of the bigger picture marketing funnel. So you're absolutely right how that continues to build. And with email marketing, in this particular case, this is one of those cases where funnel gets used a little differently, of course, right? With all the things that we learn with marketing. So a email funnel generally
Oh,
represents a series of emails. Hey, Janine,
Hi.
we're just getting started. It's a good timing. So funnels usually kind of represent those where we have like an automation or automated sequence of emails where we're nurturing or we're selling or we're following up, which is the three funnels we're going to talk about today is the um, email nurture funnel, sales funnel, or our follow-up funnel. So now that we've kind of established where they're basically funnels are going to be where they're leading somewhere, like there's a goal at the end of them. So it's a little different than our one-off broadcast messages like a newsletter that we might send weekly or monthly to our email list. So this will be something that we've got a purpose behind where we're leading somebody at the end of it. So the very first funnel we're going to talk about is our nurture funnel, and sometimes could also be referred to a welcome sequence or funnel. So that's probably the one that is the most commonly mentioned funnel is the welcome sequence. And generally that's kind of starting at the point of where you're talking about like the person coming into your orbit for the first time. They're learning, they're getting to know you. So depending on how they've come in, they may have come in through a freebie of some sort, like a quiz, a checklist, something like that. Or it could be something like a workshop, those types of things. But the purpose of that particular funnel is to be able to build relationships, and it moves that new subscriber through the process where it's leading them towards the next step on how to work with you. So does that, just want to pause for a second, does that sort of make sense? Is that what everyone sort of understands of a nurture welcome funnel? Yeah. Okay. And we'll talk about in a minute kind of how to tell if these things aren't working well, because I think I know several of you might have some sort of funnel. A lot of times the welcome funnel is the one that we kind of start off with. Um, the next type of funnel is going to be your sales funnel. So that's where you're actually turning interest into action. So now you've maybe nurtured that subscriber, that new person into your world. They may have been receiving a couple of your regular newsletters or emails that you send out as a one-off. And now the next step of the process is that you're possibly promoting. And so, this can be done in a variety of different ways. A lot of times, clients when they're kind of getting started, you may start with kind of that cadence of you've nurtured them through a welcome sequence. That's your first step in the structure. They're coming from that freebie or the way they've kind of been introduced to you. They're coming through just like that funnel, that whole visual of that idea that it's coming to the next step, and they're getting the regular emails from you at this point. So you're kind of building that consistency that you're showing up regularly to where they're getting to know you and what your content is and the value that you can provide them. The next stage, then moving them into sales, where now you're promoting something. So a lot of times that might be that you're sending after your sequence, you've sent 3 emails weekly, one a week, and then you promote at least once a month. Now, I would recommend, and I think this is one of those things that I don't always see people do, and I think it's just, people don't always feel comfortable about doing it, but is promoting to your email list, not just providing value. That's kind of where we sometimes will lean in, is we'll provide a lot of value and keep giving things for free, or advice, maybe free things that will help our prospective readers and clients to get to know us better. But then we don't think about, okay, we got to pause and actually try to sell to them. So that's the idea of a sales funnel. Then the next one is what happens if someone actually takes action within your sales funnel. So, a lot of times you may see where it's click a link, book, maybe it's buy this thing, buy this, click here. Then what happens? So a lot of times what we'll see is, okay, well, somebody clicked, we may look in our analytics and we see that somebody's clicked something, but then that's the end. If they didn't purchase, we're kind of like, I'm a little bummed by that nobody actually purchased, but they clicked. So we know that something worked, but we don't know why they didn't finish that process. And that's where the follow-up funnel could be beneficial, is where you're taking a look at the people that have clicked the link that you might have had in your sales funnel, and you're now following up with them to see, like, is there more information that they might need to be able to take that next step. A lot of times, let's be honest, I know I'm guilty of this, is that I know about an offer. I think, oh, that's a really great offer. I close my email and totally forget about it and don't look at it again. And then the offer's gone. So a lot of times that follow up, if I've clicked something, saw what it is, if I get that prompting like, hey, are you still interested? Then that's where people are might possibly go ahead and move forward if you've presented your benefits well enough to where somebody wants to take action. So that follow-up funnel is the last part. Somebody clicks, but they didn't buy, and now we're trying to move them closer to saying yes. So I'm going to pause real quick here since I've done a lot of talking to get started. Is there any questions that kind of come up here with these 3 funnels in particular?
And I think you did. First of all, hi, Carol. I don't know if you recognize me from Sales Maven. I haven't been on calls a lot lately, but I think you're doing a great job explaining the funnels. And I think the sales one's something that I haven't really done a ton of, but I think it's also because I sometimes notice that, like even with the lead magnet, it's almost like getting the right interested people on the list.
Right.
And, getting it to the point where like the people who work with me are generally word of mouth. And even though they might be on the list, I feel like they're not necessarily buying from that. But the value of being on my email list is like it's still nurturing our relationship
Yes.
and it's still keeping me like top of mind. So yeah, so I guess it's not really like a question as much as if I'm sitting here like nodding and thinking, it's like kind of just like, how do I get from the point of them like getting my info to clicking to then nurturing?
Okay. And that I think is a really good point. So one, so let's talk about kind of where things you do all the things, you have the pieces in place, and sometimes when you're getting started it feels a little overwhelming to have an automated funnel for your sales part. So you could get away with doing the scheduled emails that are the one-off emails, so that you're still promoting but you're doing a series of emails that build to the value, speaking to the benefits leading to what the promotion is. So that can still work. for people. But you're right, you know, the number one thing is starting back at the nurture or welcome sequence is building that lead magnet that's at the top of the funnel. You know, when you're talking from marketing perspective, like what Carol was talking about at the beginning, when you're talking about the very beginning of getting to know you, if your lead magnet's not leading people, your right people to come through this, then you may have a disconnect when you go to promote because they're not the right audience.
I will say though that you did help me with a welcome sequence, and I did have people buy at the end of the welcome sequence. So I have seen success
Perfect.
with that.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yes, you're welcome. So yeah, so I think that's the thing is trying to then evaluate. So this is one thing I want to kind of add as a note, and then Crispin, I see your chat there, and I see you. So hello. But so one thing that I want to say too, the thing about funnels in any type is it's not a one and done and they're set up and done forever. Like that's the advantage of taking a look at your data from time to time to see what's, you know, what's working. So if you see that there's a lot of people that are coming through your funnel, maybe you have, you know, this welcome, so they've gotten your freebie, you've been promoting your freebie, because that sometimes is the problem, right? We're not actually telling anyone about the freebie, and then we're not going to see anyone going through the nurture funnel if we're not telling people about it. So let's say people are getting the freebie and then they're moving into the welcome sequence and they're opening the email. So now I know that you guys have probably heard opens don't always measure actual opens. There's a variety of reasons why that will happen. But generally, let's just say I'm showing you a real open. When I'm looking at that statistic and you're seeing that, you know, I'm opening, usually that number one starts with there's some interest. They know who you are, right? They've gotten your free thing. And so as long as you're immediately starting to nurture that relationship with you're starting that welcome sequence. So it's not just ending with here's your freebie, good day. They don't hear from me ever again. You're actually moving to where you're starting to send them a few emails right away. Then at that point, what you could say is your opens usually can be indicative of the subject line. So the subject line is, it's like the cover of the book. It's, you know, it's, you're seeing something that's triggering my interest that makes me want to open. Now, if your next step is you've got low clicks, so you're in your welcome sequence, you have call to action. So that's the number one thing, right? When you're going in and you're looking at what you've written, generally you want to write to one reader about one topic about your lead magnet, let's say. So you're continuing that conversation with one next step. You don't want to direct this. A lot of times when you have low clicks, the very first thing I would say is looking at, you know, what have I asked them to do? Am I asking them to go follow me on Instagram, Facebook, oh, and get this thing and book a call? And if there's a lot of options, I know we've all heard this. In our sales mentor tells us this, that too many options, nobody takes action, which is really true. Like, I don't know what's the next thing for me to do. I don't know you well enough to go here, here, here. I need to know more. And so that's where if you're starting to see that there's low clicks and you have one next step, then what about that next step? Are you getting ahead of yourself? Maybe it's the next step is buy this thing after the first email. Well, they don't know you well enough to build the trust, to build the relationship, to purchase yet. So it may be that there needs to be more conversation to that next step. So you looking at what's happening in the way of the copy for that welcome sequence. And if you know your audience is the right audience, you've got the freebie that is aligning with the people that you want to sell to, then looking at that next step and looking at how your call to action is leading them to that next point. Is it clear? Like, do they understand what the next step is? Is the call to action by itself in one sentence, or is it embedded in where there's a long paragraph? People skim. So if I don't really see what your call to action is, I might not take an action at all because I haven't fully read things. So that needs to kind of stand out. But what is that next step? So I think that's something to evaluate. Now, if you're finding that you are, so in your case, Janine, if people started to purchase, then you know the people coming into your list are aligned with the offers. If you're seeing that your freebie has got people opening, they're clicking, but they're not really buying anything, and you know that your copy is good, that you've laid out the benefits, then maybe that audience isn't aligned with your services. And so it's time to maybe evaluate what your lead magnet is doing.
And yeah, and I totally recognize this isn't like the theme of today, but I think the lead magnets is such a tricky thing because figuring out what people will be interested in, like what used to work or what, has resonated at some time. So I think that's a kind of always an ongoing
Yes.
exploration.
I do think that that's true. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed is, I've evolved what my free thing was. So it worked for a little while. And then I realized, hey, people weren't interested in the checklist. So then I went with AI prompts and was like, okay, here are the AI prompts when that was a really big thing. And then I started seeing, okay, people seem less interested in knowing the prompts because everyone's sort of getting prompts in different places. So then that's where I kind of created like the GPT or created the AI assistant to try to do some of that work for them so that the AI prompts are embedded within the AI assistant so that they didn't need to worry about what the prompt was. They could just start to communicate with the thing. Now, to speak to alignment, I've had that because I can build those custom GPTs. My inclination a lot of times is when I hear someone say, oh, I have this problem, and I'm like, oh, I could build an AI assistant for that. And it's like one of the things that kind of got presented to me was the idea of how about subject lines? It's the question everybody has is subject lines. Why don't you build an AI assistant for that? And at the time, I had someone point out to me, I was like, well, I could, but is that bringing in the right aligned audience? Not really, right? That's not the people I'm looking for to try to get to the next level. The reason why I start for my freebie of re-engagement, email re-engagement campaigns, is because if you have an existing email list, that's all of us have experienced this. You have inactive subscribers at some point or another. So it's valuable to attempt to re-engage your email list. So if I'm looking for people that have no email marketing, have an email list, then re-engaging is one of those things they don't really realize they're missing. And so that gives me a chance to say, okay, ideal audience, here's something I can help you kind of recapture that audience because it's a little easier to recapture people that know you than to try to go get new people. So let me pause again right there. I know I've kind of given a lot of information, so I want to make sure that is resonating with everyone. So any questions so far?
Was re-engagement one of the three?
It's
Sorry.
actually number 4, the bonus
Okay.
one I was going to say. So you want to, re-engagement funnel is also another funnel that you want to have. But it's one of those things, right? We want to sell first. So selling and following up, that kind of leads you to closing and actually selling from your email list. And then we have to build the relationship to get started, which is why I say those are the top 3 funnels. But re-engagement is definitely, I would say, the 4th one of having that in the mix. Because you and I both know, Crispin, that you have to run that funnel from time to time, ever so often on your existing email list, even if you're doing the things in your email system. That can be beneficial just to really get people back on board, remind them of what you do and the services and value you offer to your ideal audience. Okay, so Crispin, you asked, what if Kit doesn't know whether someone bought? So that's a good question. So the thing about that, now I will say I'm noticing Kit is starting to add some new, I was going to test this. One of them's for Calendly. So they have a new app that will help to integrate Calendly. Now, I think you use what's the one? It's what is it?
Acuity is my
Acuity,
main,
yeah.
but
So,
I have been considering, because I use both of them,
yeah.
and I have been considering switching that up if there's good reason. So this might be good reason. So
I was going to
yeah,
say, so I was going to test that to find out so I could share like whether or not that's valuable, because I know a lot of the clients I work with do use Calendly. I use Calendly. So to answer the question, what if they don't know if someone bought? So here's the thing. It could either be done through a Zap. So like using Zapier to be able to say, okay, from this system, which I think Zapier does work with Acuity, to be able to say, okay, they've purchased, and we know this from this process, because they booked the call, if they're taking that next step. Or if you've got another like service like Thrivecart, something like that, again, that sometimes could be a Zap right into Kit that way, where you have a tag that gets applied automatically, which tags are basically, that's where we're giving kind of an indicator for everyone that may not know. But if we've got an indicator that's basically saying, okay, this person took this action, so that we can start an automation, which is kind of where these funnels get started, is through some action that's taken place by what's happened with the subscriber. So does that help? So that connection might work, but it's not necessarily ideal, Crispin, if you're not wanting to do the Zaps. Or otherwise, my thought is you still have a tag, but you apply those tags manually, because you will get a notification through the calendar.
right. Yeah. So that's what I do right now. So
Yeah.
instead of a sales automated sequence, there's a sequence, and if someone buys, I tag them as temporary DNS current, like just very specific.
Okay.
It's like don't solicit from these people. So I think that's what's going to continue to work for me for now.
Well, and
Yeah.
so let's say to that point, like then that's where the follow-up could end up working for you when somebody has, when somebody's like has booked, for those people that maybe clicked but didn't book,
Right.
then that's where your opportunity, if you have the tag for the link that they click
Right.
to be able to go and even book at all, for those that clicked and did nothing, then that's where your opportunity of adding an automation where there's a follow-up
Right.
sequence that maybe is 1 to 3 emails, where you're now following up, where you're spacing them out a little bit, like you're not just hitting them with 3 emails immediately, but maybe spacing to see, is this something you're interested in, or maybe this was at the right time, or do you have further questions? Like you're continuing that conversation, but you're at least attempting to reach out to that group of people that clicked but
Right.
didn't take
Yeah.
action. Because if they took enough interest to click, then there's a possibility that it's just a matter of something wasn't, like maybe they had more questions,
Right.
and it's worth
Right.
asking that.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, did I answer all your questions, Crispin?
Yeah,
So
you did.
Carol,
Thanks.
okay,
Okay, you said Zap.
yes. So it's
What is
I
that
know,
another
so
thing
I'm
to
adding
do?
another Carol,
You guys, I'm
I know
such a
you're in a
beginner. I don't
constant
know all the
state of,
language. Yes.
yeah, I know, constant state of learning these things, which I know you've learned a lot. So Zapier basically is that it's another tool that allows you to make those connections. So a lot of times it's integrating 2 systems that don't naturally talk together. So what I was mentioning earlier, where Kit is now, and like I said, I just saw this, so I haven't been able to really test any of this, but there's a tool that automatically connects Calendly and Kit automatically. The 2 systems talk to each other. But Zapier, that actually helps you, like say, okay, if Calendly and Kit do not talk, that it acts as a go-between, a traffic cop, to say, okay, some action occurred in Calendly, it gets updated to Zapier, and now you program with that automation within Zapier to say, okay, if this happens, then you add a tag within Kit, and you make the 2 systems talk to each other with that in between system. we could probably talk about that in more detail.
Actually, I could probably Google it now. I have a thing to look up. I'm good at Googling.
Yeah. So Zapier. So that's kind of the way that would work, is it basically allows two systems to talk to each other that don't already aren't set up to do that.
I said the word and my cell phone wants to know what I want to know.
Perfect. Aren't phones getting so much smarter?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So speaking to, so we're kind of talked a little bit about what, the ways to identify if your nurture emails aren't working and what, so again, all of these processes, looking at your analytics and really trying to identify things that are happening, like are people replying, are people clicking? Now, the thing is, with both opens and clicks, what you have to kind of take a look at is it's not always going to be 100% accurate, because what we know is, and depending on the type of client you work with. So I think Crispin, you work with sometimes corporate clients. Sometimes those systems will do something called a link clicker or trigger. They're trying to click to see, are these things valid? And so that kind of throws your analytics off a little bit sometimes. But the way you can indicate that something has happened is actually Kit will kind of shrink that number down to where, like, say, you can see under clicks within the analytics that there's 10. But then when you look at, who actually clicked, there's 3 people. And you can then kind of take a look. Sometimes it's a matter of, if someone's clicked all 3 links, then it's probably a link clicker or checker. If it's one link they've clicked, then it's likely that's somebody that's interested. And to be honest with you, the follow-up emails probably still are not a bad idea, if they've clicked, because you don't know. And it's a good way to verify, like, hey, I saw you peeking. Is this something you're interested in? You never know. So it's not always 100% reliable, unfortunately, but at least it's worth kind of checking and seeing, and it's not going to hurt to have that, to follow up with that. Okay, so so one of the things for your sales, let's talk about the sales funnel and trying to identify what could be wrong there. So again, we were talking about that the purpose of the sales funnel is like turning the interest into action. You're telling them about the thing that you're offering. You're leading them to a journey to where you're building on, the value that you can provide and why now. Like, that's the key thing in your copy, is really speaking to the benefits, not the features, and then speaking to the why now. Why does it matter to me now? And making sure that you're talking to that one person, like, so that is that making sense? So if you're seeing that people are clicking, so you've maybe addressed all the things that it's like, yes, this seems valuable, but then nothing's happening, they're not converting, then that's where you need to look a little deeper. Is it where they're landing? Like, is it that the sales page, if you're leading them to a sales page, is that giving all of the information? Like, is it still benefit focused? Is it clear? Do they understand what the next obvious step is to actually take the action? So I'm going to pause real quick there and just check in with everybody. Is there any questions about, like, a sales funnel and kind of figuring out what could be going on there? Are you, Carol, I think you're still muted if you were planning to ask a question.
Yeah, as Nikki has said, sometimes they're just not ready yet.
That's right. So maybe they're just checking. Maybe they're trying to see what your offer is. And then that's where, doing your regular, consistent emails to them, kind of, again, like what Janine was saying earlier, is that you're still giving them those micro touches. They're still seeing your, your name in their email box. They're still seeing content coming, so that when they are ready. And so I can tell you that I have seen, email marketing is definitely not a sprint. It's a marathon. It takes time. You don't always see things immediately. Like, so when you see people go, you're going to make $1 million or you're going to make all this money from email marketing, a lot of factors play into that, right? You know, you need to have, is it your ideal audience? Are you still having conversations with your ideal audience and are you providing value? So if you're not emailing them ever, then you don't really have an audience that's going to buy the next time you try to promote. You know, that sometimes could be a mistake, is you've only promoted and not ever provided value or built the trust ahead of time. And like you said, maybe it's not the right time and they need more time to kind of, you know, be on your list and see the things that you're providing. I've had people that were on my list that it took them a year to purchase before they became clients. So it's not always, you know, sometimes it just is when it's the right time. When I've asked people, well, why did you buy now? You've been on my list for a while. A lot of times it was now the problem existed. It didn't before. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, when you presented this offer, now it was the time for me. And that's the reason why you want to be presenting offers to your list, putting offers in front of your list often, because you don't know when the right time is for them. So
One
until you
time,
put something out, that's when you'll know.
Coach asked me why after all this time.
Yeah,
And I said, I thought I could handle it myself. I've tried
there
all
you
kinds of
go.
different things, and now I've decided I'm going to give you a try and see if we can get this
Yes.
fixed.
That's right. I mean, that's another great example, Carol. Like I've seen that same thing where I've talked to somebody, had a call with them, and then they're like, "Yeah, I think I could do this, you know, thanks for your help." And then I follow back up, because that's the other side of it too, is if you constantly following up, when I follow back up, it's like, "Have you, well, how did it go? You know, you said you were, you know, going to do these parts." And then I go, "You know, I've not done anything yet. I think I'm ready," you know, and so that happens too, right? So again, I think it is about timing. It is about sometimes having to, you know, a lot of us are do it ourselves, you know, type of people. And we think we can do it and we have done a lot. So we assume that, you know, we could do it ourselves until we realize maybe we're too busy for the thing and it's just easier to hire someone. So timing is everything. Now that kind of goes into the follow-up emails. You know, this is your opportunity again. It's kind of restarting the conversation after the promotion. They've clicked, you've shown that they're interested in the thing. So now it's like we're wanting to try to move them to the yes. So that's where if you follow up, and I think this is one of those places a lot of people, like I said earlier, this is an area we miss. I've been guilty of missing this too, where I'm like, oh, look, there's 3 people that clicked, and then I don't really do much with it. Well, that's where you could take this approach. And if you're just starting out, you could do the same type of concept, but do it from your direct email. Like if it's just a handful of people, just sending that email, one question to them, like, I saw that you were peaking. I've done that subject line. You know, is there any questions that you might have, or is there some, you know, something more you need to know about this? And sometimes that's enough to prompt at least the conversation. You know, would it be easier if we talked? You know, can we get on a call? And sometimes that helps to kind of move the needle to the next
I have a
stage.
question.
Yes.
Do most people want to get on a phone call or on a virtual call?
I will tell you, Carol, I tend to put people on the virtual call more often because that's my approach. So I don't necessarily try doing all the things. I will just say, this is the way I do it. So I think it's really kind of, you know, you finding out from your audience. You could certainly offer both if you're open to doing both, which would feel more comfortable with, you know, for you. I know people that would rather do phone calls and would not don't want to be on Zoom.
I'm so visual. I really like Zoom.
Yeah, I do too. And I wasn't always, like, initially, you know, several years ago when I was getting started, I was like, no way, I don't want to be on Zoom at all. Now it's just part of what we do. And I think after the pandemic, I think a lot of us have just gotten more comfortable with Zoom overall. So I think it's probably more accepted
And
in our
probably more
space.
people who are talking to friends and family on WhatsApp and whatever that iPhone thingy
Yeah,
is.
Yeah,
used to working virtually anyway.
that's true. And the other value to me is I really love being able to do the note taker when I'm on calls so that I can stay 100% present in that conversation and not try to take notes. I'm not a great on the fly note taker. As I'm trying to talk to someone, I will miss something always and go, wait, what was it there was this really good detail. I like having the notes. That's one way I use AI, is to help me kind of synthesize the information. I can remember a conversation and go, oh, wait, what did we talk about here? And I can get it to present back to me like, oh, that's the part. Like, tell me, is that what was in the transcript? I can kind of go back and verify that that was the detail.
I've used our recordings like that too. When did she say this? And I'll
Yes.
put that in the search, and bong, there we are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So Janine mentioned, she's had client sessions where clients have asked for that day to have their camera off. I also think virtual has the benefit of links and reminders. It helps to streamline the process. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because I think that's what you can always honor if somebody isn't wanting to be on camera, because sometimes that can feel pretty heavy for people too when you're not in that space, depending on your business, right? I think most people that are talking email marketing are generally okay speaking to me on camera,
Yeah.
but coaches and things like that may not be as comfortable. So let me ask you, how many people, here do follow-up emails in any type, funnel or just following up after someone's clicked? What would you say, like, so Carol, so you said you do, what have you found when you've done the follow-ups? Has that helped to move the conversation forward?
Well, I found out what the issue was, and it was
Okay.
and then I realized that was not a thing that I could do instead. He had another therapy he was working with and didn't want to work with me right now.
Okay.
And I said, well, of course, anytime you want to talk about whatever's going on, I'm available.
Yeah. And see, that's perfect. Like it allows you to know for sure where that, client stands and know that there wasn't anything you could do about it anyway. So you can move along, bless and release, and move on to the next person. And as long as they're staying on your email list, you never know when that changes.
Yeah. And he
So,
got really good results from our sessions, so he knows I can help.
yeah,
So
that's
this
right.
other
And then they
therapist
can,
must be doing something that he didn't think I could do, or maybe it's out
right,
of scope for me. Yeah.
right. And that's a really good point, Carol. How about you, Janine? You said that you do the follow-ups. How's that felt for you?
Well, definitely for the welcome sequence. I think it has been great. I've even had like people throughout the process kind of like email me, like reply to some of those emails. So
Yes.
that's always felt nice in
Yeah.
terms of, nurturing that relationship between the two of us. I've done the re-engagement, and in terms of that, it's been kind of interesting because if they don't re-engage, then I like have that. So maybe I don't maybe like no news is news, right? So like
Yeah.
by them not responding, I'm like, okay, like thank you. And what else? I'm trying to think of the other lead magnets I have, or not lead magnets, I'm sorry, the other. I've had for some of like the more seasonal sales that I've done. And that's been kind of interesting too, just to kind of see again, like if somebody was interested. So you've really encouraged me to make quite a few of them, and it's gotten easier as I've created them.
Yeah.
But I think my
Yeah.
most successful has been my welcome,
So there you go. So that tells you a lot, right? And it took you a little bit of time to kind of dial in and just
for sure.
continue to make tweaks and
I
looking at
actually just
what
made a note
works.
to myself to tweak it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, honestly, I go back and take a look from time to time, especially about every 6 months or so. Like, okay, is
Yeah,
everything's still working? Because I sometimes you can, when you're looking at the analytics, the way I like to look at that is if I'm seeing a trend where people are opening a lot at the beginning, And then
Mm.
it drops off somewhere in the middle where all of a sudden the open rates are very low. Like then I can investigate what those emails are doing. Maybe it's just too many emails right now. Maybe I don't need that many emails in that sequence and I can remove some emails. I've taken that approach. I've also maybe improved the subject line or what I'm talking about, the value. Was I clear? Did I make it benefit focused for them to even care about why to open that? Am I telling them at the beginning something that I started to try to do? Two things. One is in my automation for welcome emails, I add a new subscriber tag at the very beginning. So when they opt in, so they come in through my form, and then the next step of the processing kit is I add the tag of a new subscriber tag. And I also add another tag of opting in for what that freebie is so that I have an idea of what their interest was, especially as I've gotten more freebies over time. And then I go through the welcome sequence. When they've completed the welcome sequence, I'll take that tag off the new subscriber tag. The benefit of adding that new subscriber tag is I don't send them, I exclude my regular weekly emails so that they're not getting they're getting a chance to be nurtured and build that relationship before I start sending them the regular things that they would normally get from me. And I've noticed a difference in doing that versus when I didn't really parse out new subscribers at the beginning and was kind of testing how that might work. Now it felt like too many emails because a lot of times the welcome sequence I'm sort of pacing at one a day until it ends, which I'm telling at the beginning, like this is what you can expect. I'll be sending emails, and then the cadence changes. You're not going to see it that daily email, but here's what you're going to see going forward. And then I take that tag off. And so I always remove people that are at the new subscriber place before I start them in on the regular newsletter.
And do you do that in the kit? In the where do you add that tag? What
So,
makes that tag happen?
okay. So generally what I do is when they go through the beginning, let's say the automation is the form. It triggers at the form at the beginning. So that's your opt-in form. The next step of the process, I'll usually add opt-in and then the name of the lead magnet. So if it's like my re-engagement lead magnet, I'll have that as the next tag. And then the next tag that adds, so funny, your black cat, I love that. And then the next tag I add is new subscriber. So I add like two tags at the beginning when they enter the form. And then I start them through the welcome sequence as my fourth step in that process. And then once they've completed the welcome sequence, then that's when I remove the new subscriber tag. So at the end of that, I will say remove tag new subscriber. And then they kind of complete the sequence. Now,
Great. Maybe on one of our group calls, I'll
yes.
ask for that specific help.
Okay. Yeah, that would be perfect. And we can kind of go through that. And now I'm testing the idea of, okay, so I've pitched the offer at the end of my welcome sequence, my lower priced offer. And so now I'm timing it to where, okay, I'm going to do a little promo after that of the next thing if they want to book a one-on-one call with me. And so there'll be a few sales emails that will go into the next part of that funnel. I'll pace it to where maybe there's a 3 to 5 day delay. And then I'll do that sales promo. And then if they've clicked, I've added in the follow-up sequence to say, okay, you clicked, but maybe didn't take action, and, hopefully nudge them towards taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea is when someone signs up, that's when they're the most engaged.
Right.
And that's when they're more likely to buy versus someone that's been on your list for a long time may not. That's the timing thing. That's the right time scenario. So if you present an offer in your welcome sequence, then there's a better chance that someone's going to take that next step.
Right.
So we're at the 45 minutes. So I just wanted to kind of check in again with everybody's time. Is there any other questions?
I do have to hop off, but I just want to
Yeah.
say it was so nice to see you all. And Kathy, this was amazing. I'm inspired.
Oh, good. Thanks, Janine. I appreciate it.
All right. See you guys soon.
Bye.
Can you name the three sequences again? So
We've got
welcome.
nurture, welcome. So that's kind of one and the same, like
Okay.
one and the same. And then the next one is going to be sales funnel. And then the third one is follow up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you and I have talked about it many times before, that it's the re-engagement, right? That's one of our, I actually just was putting on the screen, like kind of what,
Right. Yeah.
and then, like I said, the re-engagement funnel is, for those inactive subscribers that we can send some emails to. Now, I will say, and I have kind of changed my approach on this, I will still, from time to time, if I still see people kind of building up, that cold is building up, I send regular emails, and oftentimes people will start to drop off. They'll unsubscribe naturally because I'm sending regular emails. So I don't always re-engage every 90 days like I used to. But what I do with re-engagement now is I will generally, like, if it's 6 to 9 months and I'm starting to get kind of a buildup of inactive subscribers, then I will put them through the re-engagement sequence just to go ahead and specifically, because I also want to keep my sender reputation high. And so I don't want these emails just go unopened to a growing group of inactive subscribers. So I will start to do, like, go ahead and try to re-engage them, to have them make a choice, stay on, or, or, you know, bless and release.
Yes. Um, great. Yeah, this is inspiring, and I have a bunch of questions I want to ask, which I will ask in the other group.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything else, Carol? I just wanted to check in with you as well. And then,
No, so much of this is in the future for me that I'm
yeah.
not doing now because I'm really building just the list. But having that information in my data bank helps me know what's coming and feel comfortable visualizing it in reality.
Perfect. And I would say one thing, I did do a blog about this topic to kind of touch on it a little bit deeper, that might be able to, you could reference later. I'm going to put that into the chat, that's on my website, if that's interesting. And then the one thing, Carol, that you might be able to consider starting, because you're building your email list, is that welcome or nurture funnel. That could be your
Yeah.
first place to
And
start.
Babs made me one, and then when I told her about my coma, she said, "Oh," boop, and then she made me another one. And I haven't talked to her yet about my focus with hypnosis.
Okay, so that could change it slightly again, now that your audience is going to shift a little bit, potentially.
Yeah. And then so I have some questions about dual audiences, which I'll bring up in our other thing.
Okay. So Crispin, what do you think is going to be the one thing that you might focus on next?
I think the most valuable is to refresh my welcome sequence.
Yeah.
The content.
Yeah.
I did use Babs to rewrite it, and I just haven't implemented it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to consider follow-ups, how to use follow-up emails. Right now, I don't bother for the lower ticket things, but as I
Yeah.
launch the Lift program, that makes more sense to put time into.
Yeah. And you could even just start off, Crispin, as you're trying to dial that in. If it's going to be an evergreen offer, is try first by emailing, just from your personal email, and doing one
Right,
off to,
right.
like one person, one-to-one conversation, especially if it's a handful of people. That's kind of
Right.
how I started to see kind of the way to tweak Like what's too much information? What, what I have found is one question a lot of times, like, are you still thinking about this offer?
Right.
Like whatever the
Right.
offer name is, this is something you're still considering, is a good starting conversation.
Is that a good subject line too?
I've gotten a lot of reaction when I said I saw you peeking. But you could ask that question, is this something you're still considering? Yeah, I think you test it. Like what I would do when I had follow-ups, I would go in and take a look and I would kind of like change it up a little bit. So that's why I say it could be a little test, Crispin, especially in Carol, as you're kind of testing that idea of following up. Like what did work? What got someone to answer and reply and go, okay, that one, I nailed it there. And because remember, as I always say, it is a test. We're going to tweak and vary based off of what our audience, and it's not always going to work for everyone. So I found I would sometimes do too much in a follow up, thinking I needed to try to answer everything before they've ever asked anything. And then I've done the now back to one question, and I've gotten better results having, asking one question. Like either
Yeah.
they're going to say, nope, not interested anymore, not right time. I get at least something, or I do have some questions actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it's good to test for your own experience.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for attending. I appreciate you guys coming, and we can definitely talk on Monday in the group if there's any questions that pop up between now and then with all about your funnels.
Oh, the Monday group, how long do you keep that open in? Because you open it at 6 a.m., which
Well, your
I'm
time.
not
So I
anywhere. Yeah.
So I a lot of times, though I said from like 9 to 4 Eastern, sometimes I'll go pop in. Like I know for you guys that are on the Pacific Coast, I know sometimes you're not getting started when I'm started. So I have been kind of popping in the next day to see if there's something I missed from after that time frame. I'll just tell you, after 5 o'clock my time usually is when I don't really, like creatively, my brain is not as strong as it is in the morning. So I may follow up the next day if it's one of those things that I see toward the end of your day, or
Okay.
toward the end of my day, but kind of in the middle of yours.
Yeah.
Since I know there's
4,
more.
3, 2. Yeah, it would be 2
Yeah.
o'clock here.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.